I read under the radar romance novels. Hi guys, welcome back to the channel. Now for today's video, I thought it would be really fun to pick out some smaller indie romance titles that not a lot of people have read, that not a lot of people have reviewed on Goodreads. So these books are books that have less than 10,000 ratings on Goodreads, even some have less than 5,000. And I just decided to kind of go into my backlist of books that I've always wanted to read and that has been on my TBR for a long time, but I never had the motivation to read because I don't know if you guys feel the same way as me, but whenever there is a popular title that everybody's talking about, I have the fear of missing out and I want to read the popular titles first, which is unfortunate because then it kind of pushes down all the other books that are not getting as much as attention down the list, and then soon I forget it. So here are all the titles that I have picked up recently that are not so popular that maybe you can also add it to your TBR too as well. So the first book that I want to talk about is actually a recommendation that I saw on one of my videos from my subscribers, but I've already picked it up by the time they commented on my video. So this one is called Can I Come Over by Whitney G, and this one was released like a long time ago, but it's basically essentially about our heroine who writes romance novels, but she's having a really difficult time writing some particular sexy scenes in the novels. So she needs inspiration, she needs help, and she needs motivation, guidance, confidence, whatever. So she turns to her internet friends on a community forum, and she's friends with this one particular person that she's been talking to for a very long time, and they exchange like words and they help each other, and he does a great job at kind of like making her motivated and inspiring her to finish her book and things like that. And it's only until when she meets him does she realize that she actually knew him all along and that it's actually her dad's best friend. So it's kind of like a taboo romance, and it definitely was leaning onto the spicier side. It focused a lot on it because it is kind of like a novella, so it obviously packs the heat. But for me personally, I don't really like dad's best friend romances, and I never knew it was a dad's best friend romance. If I knew that going in, I probably would have readjusted my mindset, or maybe just overall never picked up the book in the first place. So this one, unfortunately, I just gave it a 3 out of 5 stars. It was an average read for me, but I really like Whitney G, and if you guys haven't read her yet, definitely go pick up her books. She writes really good enemies to lovers romances, and they're always packed with heat. So the next book that I did pick up is this one called Love Language by Emma Hart. Now, if you guys have been a viewer of my channel for a very long time, you guys will probably know that I've kind of like got really addicted to Emma Hart's writing last year. It's not like my favorite, it's not like I really love her books and I have to recommend them to you guys, but it's like a comfort read author. She writes romantic comedies that follow tropes that we are all familiar with, that are cliche, that it's just characters that are kind of like cookie cutter and you just know what you're getting into when you're reading an Emma Hart novel. Usually the characters are kind of like in sticky hot situations, or they're messy or things like that. And then in this book called Love Language, it's actually different. Our heroine is actually part of the aristocrat family, so she has a title to her name, and she is, you know, well received by the British like people. I don't know what to say. It's set in England, so yeah. And basically she has her duties, and her father really wants her to get married because she is approaching that age where people are kind of wondering when is she ever going to get married. But she has her own priorities, which essentially involves gardening, because she loves gardening and she loves plants and she loves studying it, and that's her main focus in school, which is just plants. And so she is telling her father she wants to focus on her garden, but then her father is like, no, let's make a deal. You have to try out to at least date or something, or else I can't like let you live like this because you're just going to die alone with your plants. So she unhappily agrees to this. But meanwhile, while she is kind of getting set up on these dates or these plans for marriage, she's in her garden having fun. But our hero is the royal family, or like the family's gardener, and he's responsible for everything, and he's a grumpy guy. So it's a grumpy sunshine romance trope, and he doesn't like her touching his plants because he worked so hard on cultivating it, and he worked so hard on making sure that the landscaping was up to par. And essentially this book has a lot of Pride and Prejudice themes in it because our heroine is just a really down-to-earth, very sweet person. But unfortunately, because of her title, people think that she's a snob, especially our hero. And then our hero is kind of very judgmental of her and just like writes her off as this princess, but she's not. So it gets really frustrating when we keep hearing the same arguments over and over again, where our heroine's kind of like stomping her foot and saying, you know, I'm not a princess, I can do dirty labor, I can just do everything that normal people do because I am a normal person. And then our hero is just trying to dispute it, and they're having like bickering fights on and on. So this one unfortunately dragged because of what I just mentioned, and it was very disappointing because I really like a grumpy sunshine trope. And I ended up giving it just an average 3 out of 5 stars, mostly because it was cute in some areas, but it definitely felt like it was dragging on forever. The next book that I did pick up is this one called Forrest for the Trees. This one's kind of like a romantic suspense novel. It's by Kilby Blades, and essentially our heroine is a park ranger, and she is a black woman, and she is just trying to do her job while also being in like a community full of people that kind of look at her as she's incapable of doing it because of the skin color and also because she is a female. And usually like people aren't like park rangers, like females aren't park rangers or something like that. Like that was like this whole big thing, and she's just trying to be like this headstrong woman that knows her stuff. So something's happening in the forest, meaning like people are setting fires, and it's like kind of like an arsonist situation. So she needs to catch this arsonist before they cause real damage to the forest and potentially harming a lot of the people who stay in the forest. And she has to work together with our hero, who is like the local firefighter, and they kind of go together like oil and water sometimes. They're complete opposites, and he infuriates her because of how laissez-faire his like personality is sometimes, or how he just kind of is very demanding and he overrules her opinions and things like that. So they don't really get along, but they have to work together to solve this case. So overall, I found this book to be like this kind of like sweet small town slow romance. Once again, it was kind of like you can feel the lull in the book where it's kind of like sometimes some things happen, sometimes some things don't, and you have this like very slow burn romance happening between our two main characters. I just wished that there were more events that taken place to kind of like pick up the speed of the book, and I wish that our characters would have some hotter scenes faster. But overall, I gave this one a 3 out of 5 stars. I like Kilby's writing, and I definitely will keep an eye out for more of her romances that she puts out. So this one is part of the Smarty Pants romance print, and that's like the publisher that's owned by Penny Reed, who is also a romantic comedy author. So the next book that I did pick up is this one called Best of Me by LK Farlow. Now, LK Farlow was an author that I read last year that I really enjoyed. I really liked her book, and I just thought it was very juicy, very dramatic. If you guys are in for like really toxic, juicy, dramatic, romantic comedies, then I think LK Farlow might be for you. So the last book that I read from her was Best Laid Plans, and I just remember it to be this like really messy story where it involves our heroine getting pregnant from a one night stand, I think, and then she hiding the baby for like a long time, and then our hero coming back into her life and finding out that he has been a father all along. So Best of Me follows the trope of something that I've never read before, but basically our heroine is a twin, and her twin sister died in a car crash, and then our hero was actually boyfriend and girlfriend with the sister. So he has spent the last like maybe like 10 years grieving over this sister, and he's like, I'll never fall in love again. She was my only one. I don't care about anybody else. In walks our heroine, and it's like literally the same face, and it's only like the voice that's different, and the personalities of course are different, but he is like scared of like her face because it brings back a lot of pain, it brings back a lot of memories. And there is a lot of hate towards our heroine, mostly because she wasn't at the funeral, so our hero automatically hates her. and her whole family has turned against her for some reason. We don't know. But in reality, what we do know and what we find out is excruciatingly painful. Like, I feel so bad for her heroine because she does not deserve, like, the hate that was given to her. So if you guys are looking for like a underdog romance where the heroine is subjectified to bullying and subjectified to things that she does not deserve because she's a really good person, but then she doesn't know how to defend herself, and then she also puts a lot of guilt on her shoulders, so you kind of like feel really bad for her, then you will like this book. It's very dramatic. It talks a lot about PTSD. It talks a lot about grieving over a lost one. It talks about abusive parents. It talks about like just like everything. So it's very juicy. It's very interesting. It's very entertaining. And I gave this one a 4 out of 5 stars. Okay, so the next book that I want to talk about, and also like probably like the last book that I want to talk about, is this one called Love Notes by Christina C. Jones. Now, this is my first Christina C. Jones novel, and I don't think it's going to be my last because I really like the characters that Christina writes. So basically, our heroine is very confident in herself. She knows what she wants, and what she wants is just a good time. So she kind of goes and approaches our hero in like a bar or a club, I forget what, but she flirts with him, and then he's like, whoa, what? Like, this is like too strong. And then she's like, okay, if you can't handle me, then I'm just gonna leave. And he's like, I never said that. Like, let's hang out. So it starts off with like kind of like a hot one night stand, and they thought that they will never see each other again, and they're completely okay with it. I mean, he's a little bit reluctant to see her go because he wants something more, or he's at least like growing attached to her. Meanwhile, our heroine is kind of like, I don't want a relationship because I've never had a long relationship before. They're wasting my time, and I don't trust people easily. She has that defense mechanism up. So if you guys don't like characters who are kind of like flaky and don't want to commit and are commitment phobes, then maybe you won't like her, but I was okay with her. And essentially they meet each other again because like fate brings them together and they have to work together, and they start developing this like stronger relationship where he's just kind of convincing her that they could be the real deal and that they could have something ever long lasting. But it's up to her to kind of overcome her own insecurities and to go into that relationship that could mean a happily ever after. I gave this one a 3 out of 5 stars because it was just like a good read, but there was like nothing really happening. I didn't really know the plot of the story. It was just them kind of like slowly talking and falling in love, which is fine, but I just wanted a little bit more. But I'm very excited to read more Christina C. Jones novels though. But anyways, that is it for all the romances that I have read that are under the radar. Hopefully you guys have some books to add to your TBR and maybe some more authors to keep aware of. Let me know down below what are the last few books that you have read that are not so popular, and I'll see if I can read them too. I'll see you guys again next time in a new video. Bye.